Hi, and welcome everyone to another episode of the Fireside Chat about Taboo Topics series. It's a series of conversations I have with people about topics that I find aren't nearly enough talked about in the society and that I want to bring awareness to, and my guests also want to bring awareness to, because only when we are aware can we do something about it and change the world in the process. And today I'm joined by Teresa Hawkes, and we are going to talk about postnatal depression and psychosis. And I know that a lot of women or people who have given birth suffer from postnatal depression. And again, they rarely talk about, and so people feel so alone in this. They don't know what's happening. And that's why we want to have this conversation today, to help you understand if you or if a friend is maybe going through such a period, and what you can do to support yourself or to get support. And so Teresa is a mom of 4 boys, which in itself deserves a lot of respect. I definitely have to say kudos for doing this. It's tough work being a mother of 4, and you're doing a great job. And she has gone through periods of postnatal depression and postnatal psychosis, and is willing to talk about that with us today. And I'm beyond grateful that you do and that you want to share about this vulnerable topic. She by now also supports others and supports an organization who work with women and people who have given birth, who go through or have gone through postnatal depression, to again raise awareness and to change something in the system. Teresa, welcome today.
Thank you, Lisa. I always tell people I have 5 boys because I include my husband into that as well. sometimes it's hard.
Oh yeah.
So yes, I
would you like to
have
share a few more words about yourself?
yes, I just have 4 boys. My eldest is 10, 9, 7 and 5. And today, because I thought I was chatting to Lisa, I thought I would brighten myself up and put a wee bit of makeup on and some Christmas earrings to bring that Christmas spirit, a bit of Christmas sparkle, because I like to leave a wee bit of sparkle wherever I go. So yeah.
And that in itself is a beautiful message, leaving sparkles wherever you go.
It is, because a part of my life was so dark. It was looking back now, I might get a wee bit emotional talking about it. I was just a robot, just doing things just for the sake of doing them. Probably with this conversation, I just want to say this is my journey, and what I've done to help myself might help others, it might not. And I want to bring the awareness of antenatal, postnatal depression, and postpartum psychosis to the forefront, because it's not talked about enough and we're not aware of the signs and symptoms of it. And I know with postpartum psychosis, it can actually happen quite quickly with some people. Some mothers can get it straight after birth. Some mothers can take it before they're due. And with mine, it kind of happened through a bit of time within, I think I took it, experienced it with my last wee boy. My eldest boy is 10, boy 9 and 7 and 5. I'm actually surprised they got all their ages right. But I took it with my last wee boy 5 years ago. And I suppose with my first child as well, I did went through antenatal depression, not realizing, because I remember going to the doctor and saying to him, I'm very anxious about giving birth and a bit scared as well of giving birth. And then he referred me to a counselor, and I went to see that counselor. And she came in, she was very tall, very skinny, very glamorous looking, high heels on her. And she was like, right, what's the problem? And I says, well, I'm scared of giving birth. And I can't remember the exact conversation, but it was more or less ended that if you need me, give me a ring, and goodbye. And that was it. And then I felt there was nothing wrong with me. I'm just normal. It's just a normal thing people worry about and mums go through, and that was it. And then probably with the first birth, it didn't go the way I planned. It was an emergency C-section, and my husband rushed away. I was signing these documents in case I lost my life, not being able to have another baby, all these things. And it was, for me, it was quite scary. And I remember after having him, I felt so guilty. I was crying for about 6 months or longer because I was wondering why was my body letting me down? Why could my body not give birth the way my friend did? My other friend did, my sisters did. I was questioning everything. And I remember the midwife coming in and saying to me, because over here in the NHS, the midwife comes out for 10 days. And she was like, "You're very lucky. Your baby came out the way it did through they call it the sunroof way, the one of the car." It was supposed to seem to be as an easy, but it wasn't easy. It was hard. And then I remember only lately there, someone said to me, it really doesn't matter what way you give birth, because birth's birth, no matter if it's a C-section, natural birth, or forceps delivery, whatever, it's still a birth. The baby's still coming out of you, like it's still birth. And some births, yes, are harder than others, natural or C-section. It is a difficult procedure to go through. But I think if I was given the right support, the right information, I would have been more aware of that experience and was more prepared for it. Because they do say knowledge is power. So then after that,
and if I may just jump in here,
Yes.
because
Yes.
I think that's something that is very, very crucial, and that we see in our modern hospital system, that it's about body autonomy. As you say, you weren't really clear on what to do. You were already scared, but that fear wasn't like met with empathy.
No.
It was just, you have to go in hospital, go out hospital as quickly as possible. And that leaves an imprint on us, on our bodies. That also like it informs if your body feels safe in that environment or not. And so of course, it's not your body that's failing you, but it might seem that way, and you reproach yourself while it's not at all your fault. It's about like your autonomy has been taken from you, and that's like the worst thing that can happen when you feel powerless.
And the choices was taken away. The choice and understanding was definitely taken away. And then I breastfed again. This is my story. And then there was a myth over here that sometimes if when you breastfeed you don't get pregnant, but that's not true. You do get pregnant when you breastfeed, because I got pregnant very quickly with my second boy. And again, it ended up emergency section. And then we moved house, and then I had my third boy, and its birth, it was very traumatic again. It was because I was so eager to have a natural birth and believed that I could have it. Again, my choice was taken away from me. It was a birth. It was a forceps delivery. Again, tear and all that as well. It took longer to recover from that. And then we moved house again, and then I had another boy. And again, I had to change healthcare systems. And it was just like whenever I moved house the third time, I knew nobody. I left an area, I lived beside my mother and father for a while. So I left an area where I kind of knew everybody, and everybody would stop and talk to an area where, yes, I had my mother-in-law and my father-in-law, but they had their own things going on. My mother-in-law had a job, my father-in-law was in the farming. There was really nobody, no support at all. And I know we didn't live that far away, but for me, it did feel like ages away. I lived 45 minutes away from my mother as well. So it did. So I felt so isolated, so lonely. I didn't want to change doctors because I moved to another area. I was very anxious about that. And then it did change. But before I had my fourth child, I couldn't taste any food. I knew I had to eat because to keep the baby getting nutrients. My husband was away one night a week. So I was literally left on my own for one night a week, and I was starting to have these dreams, like really like the dreams were like a horror movie. I could have probably wrote a horror movie. They were that bad. I couldn't talk about them, and I didn't want to tell anybody about them because I thought people are going to think I'm mad, I'm crazy. Like these dreams were so dark, so bloody, and so gory, and it was just they were not nice at all. So I was lack of sleep because of that. I could sleep at night time. My husband being away one night a week. Then I was trying to get one child up and ready and go to school, plus take another two out with me as well. I was just walking around like like a robot, like there was no life. There's no life there. It was just mechanical doing it. And I remember going into the school and the principal said to me, "How are you?" And I was like, "I'm still alive." And I literally meant that. I really did mean that I was still alive. And then the fourth child came along, and I didn't try for natural birth that time. We went for a C-section. So we did, and that's when I started to really go downhill. I had I fed him myself as well. The dreams were getting worse. I was very emotional. I felt like I don't know if you ever see the Harry Potter movie. It was the one Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, where they have like a moaning ghost in the toilets called One Myrtle. I felt like that. Everything was just down, and even getting dressed, like I was just sometimes I would have went to bed with just clothes on because it was just easier for me to get up in the morning to get the children out. Then there was a decision whether to brush my hair or brush my teeth. You know, I know that doesn't sound, that was just where I was at that stage of my life. And I remember the youngest boy, Jacob, putting him in the car and taking the boys to school. And every time he was in the back of the car, I had to check and check because I thought I had ran over him, I'd driven over him, like an anxiety of that. And because whenever you're getting the children, whenever I was getting the boys into the car, I would left him sitting in his car seat and then got the other children in. And then I said, "Did I put him into the car? Is he in the back of the car? Did I drive over him?" That was every day. And then my husband, because he was away one night a week, he would have been home on a Tuesday night at 7:30. He would have worked in Belfast, and we lived about an hour and a half away from Belfast. So if he wasn't home by 7:30 at night, I was like, where the hell are you? And why are you not home? And like he might have only been like 5 minutes late, but he had to be home for 7:30, or I would have he would have just got the cold shoulder when he came in from his job, and I would have been like really cross. Well, you know, I wouldn't speak to him, and you know, it was just the way, and he didn't know what was going on either. We thought maybe it's just a move in the house, not putting everything together, like the births I went through. I didn't talk about the dreams, so he didn't know about the dreams. So he was doing what men do best, and I don't mean that as a, suppose this is just our story. He would just went out to work, did what he did, came home, did what needed to be done on the house. Two of us went to bed, didn't really speak. That got up in the morning, next day, did the same thing. It was just like Groundhog Day. Every day was the same thing. And then I can't remember when things actually, I think Jacob might have been 2.5 months when I really couldn't sleep. I was getting up, and again, I couldn't taste anything, and I started doing these behaviors. Like, I felt that there was gouts in my head. Like, I don't know if you ever see the film Scream, where the person wears this like white mask and big black. I felt they were inside me, and the only way to get them out was to go outside my house, up the field. There's like 3 trees, and I had to go down on my knees and literally roar, like coming from the pit of my stomach, really, really loud, because I felt if I had let them out in the house, they would have went into the boys and would have made them, and I couldn't. I couldn't comprehend, I couldn't understand what I was doing. I had to do that. And then when I came in, and I would have ran cold water in my hands to try and take the thoughts out of my mind to focus on the sensory, the cold. And then I had to walk up and down the bath as well, water on my feet. That was happening 2 or 3 times a day or more. I can't actually remember how many times that was happening. And then I started doing rituals because we moved into a new house, and all I felt was darkness. I wanted to open up the windows to let the light in and get the darkness out. So I was running around the island putting salt around our kitchen to keep the darkness away, and the light, trying to get the light in. And our kitchen floor was like, because I was using water, I had to have ice on my hands as well, again for the coldness, to take the thoughts away. It was like an ice rink. It was water everywhere. And then my husband Ryan came up with this idea: why don't you use ice packs out of the freezer? So that was actually that was brilliant. That was really, really good idea. So we started using ice packs, and then I got involved with a charity. Well, before that all came to a head, where those behaviors were getting intense and quite serious, I got involved with a charity called Support Together. And I remember Brian says he would take the day off work, and I says, I think you need to take the day off work. And I remember getting up, and I just couldn't cope. I was just on my knees, and I was outside squealing, and Ryan had to take the children to school. And I was like, Ryan, what are we, like, I didn't even speak to him. I put a message in the group: please, somebody come and help. Please help. And I am so grateful for that. I'm getting a bit emotional now because I haven't really talked much in depth about this, but one of the ladies from the charity came out, and I couldn't speak. I couldn't speak. I couldn't hear. Not that didn't want to hear. I just couldn't cope with the input of everything around me, even the voices of my children. I was trying to get them to be quiet, and play like quiet games with them and getting them to go to bed. There was no TV allowed. I couldn't have TV on. And I remember her coming out, and I remember just walking up, back and forward, and just talking about the past, things that came up in my childhood. Obviously, I went through a bit of depression when I was younger and didn't realize it, because my mother had severe postnatal depression, and back then there was no help. And I don't know if she had experienced postpartum psychosis as well. I'm not 100% sure, but she had it quite bad herself. So I don't know, as a child, whether I picked things up and they stayed in my body, not recognizing it. And then whenever I took really sick, it all came out, and it all, like, just everything just was coming out. I didn't really know what I was saying, and I thought the devil was in me. And then I didn't really want to take medication because I thought I could do this myself. I could get myself better. But we went then to see the doctor. We got a mental health appointment with the doctor. And I remember going in, I had a notebook where I wrote everything out. All the darkness was coming out, and I read it. I couldn't even speak to the doctor. And I had to say to Ryan, I can't talk. Can you give that to the doctor? And Ryan was doing all the talking for me. And I remember I had Jacob in my arms, and I had this gold cardigan on me, and I was soaked in lavender. And Jacob kept sleeping the whole time because of the smell of the lavender. But it was the only way the smell again was taken away. It was me coping. It was a coping mechanism for me to get me out of my head and try and get my attention to something else. So that was okay. And he sent Ryan down to the pharmacy to get me a medication to kind of lower things down a bit. And it worked. And then we were sent then to get assessed by a community psychiatric nurse. So I went then to get assessed, and because I had the medication within me, he was like, "Oh, you're not going to be staying in. You seem fine." You'll be okay. You can back in here next week. And Ryan, whenever I went back out to Ryan, am I allowed to curse?
Yes.
Ryan was like, what the fuck am I going to do with her for a full week? Because he knew what I was like when I was off the medication. That was only one tablet I took. So when I went home that night, again, I couldn't sleep. I was telling him, again, I was starting to do the rituals. I was telling him to say things to me when I was walking up and down the kitchen. I had to get the ice pack. I was going out again, really roaring from the pit of my stomach, like really roaring. And again, the lady from the charity Support Together, she advised them to make another mental health appointment for me. So I don't think it was the doctor this time, it was another CPN. So this time they assessed me again and then we were sent home. And I remember Ryan coming down to the room. I was knackered because I hadn't slept the night before and I had slept. And again, because I had medication on me. And he was like to me, what do you think about going into hospital, into the mental health hospital? And it took a while to answer him because I started to think then logically I would have been sectioned, which means they would have forced me to go in if I hadn't went in willingly. So I thought of my boys. I can't keep going the way I'm going or something's going to happen. And my decision was then, right, okay. It was a hard decision to make, but it was the right one to make as well. So it was definitely, and even before going into hospital, I had all these thoughts like, and they're only thoughts. I wanted just to ruin my life. I wanted to ruin me. I thought, what if I go out and get drunk and just have sex with random people, or even the boys were in the cars? Think not with the boys in the car, it was myself. What if I drive out because we live along a busy road? What if I drive out in front of this truck and that would be me? You know, these thoughts were coming into me, but again, I never talked about them because I suppose when you speak of things about stuff,
we don't talk about these things.
and it's reality too. It's like, right, something's not right here, or again, being seen to be as crazy. And I was just, and because I was such in a negative place, everywhere I went, I felt that people were very negative against me. It's like what they say, you track what you feel or you track what you see. But because I was such on a low vibe, on a low negative energy, I was attracting those people who were kind of like, isn't this an awful day? Oh, there's nothing to look forward. You know, that was feeding my anxiety. That was feeding my depression. That was feeding the darkness. The darkness was there, but it just grew and grew because I didn't know what else to do. I didn't know. I didn't know. And then with the postpartum psychosis, I was really scared. I didn't know what I was capable of. I didn't know if I was capable of hurting my children. I didn't know if I was capable of hurting my husband. And whenever I went into the hospital, there was a lady, she kept walking up and down past. I was taken into a room to get to be questioned, a consultation room that was in the ward. So there was people walking up and down, but I thought it was the doctor because she kept looking in, but it was another patient. And I kept saying, why is there people walking up and down? And then they came in and they questioned. I was questioned and questioned over again, but I couldn't talk again. I had to let Ryan do all the talking for me. There was coloring books sitting out on the table. I was looking through them, and some were quite busy. And there was one that I thought, right, if I do this coloring book, it was like you color with your right hand first, and then you do your left hand. Then you use your right and left hand to color in. And after a day or two after I got settled, and I thought, right, when I do this coloring book within 6 months, I'll be flying. I'll be better. I'll be doing this. I'll be doing that. That's not the way it works. And you can't put a time scale on how long it takes you to get through that journey of postnatal depression and postpartum psychosis because everybody's different and it affects people in a different way. But the only thing I can say to help others is it's bringing that awareness. It's bringing that awareness to yourself, and it is hard to sit with you. It's hard to sit with yourself, and it's hard to console yourself and have that sympathy with yourself.
Mhm.
And it's only you that can make you better. You can go to the counselors, you can go to the doctors, you can go to the mental health team. Yes, they all help, but it's up to you to do the work, or because nobody can do it for you. And we're all worth it. We're all worth to being well and to keep ourselves, we are who we are. And I can understand why some people are in the darkness, because it takes a lot of work to get out that darkness, and it's hard. It really is.
And it's really powerful that you say that
Yeah,
it's us who have to do the work. That is
yeah,
powerful and courageous, and not
yeah,
something many people embark on, because it is at times painful.
yes,
And also because you start taking back the responsibility for your own healing, or at least for part of that healing. It means you overcome this situation that has happened before, where you felt so powerless. Because that's
yeah,
the antidote to when we feel completely powerless, looking where we can take back control. And I think that sometimes we use all these very strange ways to try and take back control. I mean, you having these thoughts of going out, get drunk, do something,
yeah,
is also a way of at least feeling something again, and
yeah,
having some control over your life.
yeah. It is, because all I felt was numbness and cold, and even towards Ryan, like it was like, yeah, we were just. It was like we're working. It's like as we had a job, that we just do these things, go to bed at night, wake up, do the same thing. As long as the children got fed, us as a couple, as a relationship wasn't existed, didn't exist. We were just there, and that was it. And even with him, like me and him had to work on ourselves and our relationships, because through that journey of the postpartum psychosis, the postnatal depression, I changed, and he changed a bit as well, because I was getting more independent, and I would say things to him, and he was picking me up the wrong way, and then I was picking him up the wrong way, and we were clashing. So we went to counseling to kind of sit down together, and brought more understanding and love into our relationship, which is great. We're in a better place now. Yes, it still takes work. It still takes time to work on us as a couple, because we are a busy house. We have 4 boys, and sometimes we need to reconnect. We need to reconnect together as adults, as individuals, and not as a mom and dad, as a man and a woman. And you do need to do that as well. So you do definitely. It's to be able to talk about things, and again, through this work as well that I've done myself, and he has done at the start. Suppose going through the journey, my journey only really started when I was aware of having to go into hospital to get the help. And I always like this quote, but I've written it down here. It's Mary Oliver. She's an American poet. The Uses of Sorrow. Someone I loved once gave me a box full of darkness. It took me years to understand that this too was a gift. And that stuck with me for a long time. And I love that, because when I look back in my journey of antenatal, postnatal depression, and postpartum psychosis, I wouldn't be living now. I wouldn't be, I'd still be in that darkness. I'd still be in that void. And it was only when I started going through my own journey and getting the help, I realized I can make choices. And that was a really, I know it sounds really simple, and it's a really easy thing to be able to realize that you do have choices. But I suppose because whenever you're brought up as a child, you follow the culture of your family, you follow your friends, you follow what you think you are, which sometimes can be quite wrong, as not who you are. You want to be more, but you don't believe in yourself, so you just follow the crowd. And I remember Una taking me out of the hospital. That's the lady who works for Support Together charity, and she took me to the shop, and she bought ice lollies, and she bought actually 2 ice lollies, 2 different ones. And she was like, which one do you want? I was like, no, you pick first. And she goes, no, I'm not picking one until you pick one. I'm like, no, I want you to pick one first. And she goes, no, you pick. And I was like, okay. And whenever she did that, like she didn't realize she was doing anything for me. And I never realized it either. And I came back into the hospital thinking, oh my God, I can make choices. I can say no and I can say yes to things.
Wow. Yes.
That was such a big, that was just a big thing for me. I know that sounds probably really simple to some people and an easy thing to do, but sometimes when you go,
Simple, not easy. I always
yeah,
say it's simple in itself, but it's not
yeah,
easy, especially when, as you say, we've been brought up in these conditions, trained
yeah,
to make everybody else happy.
yes, and that's so true. So suppose that was the start of my realization that I can actually say no and yes to things, which was a big, massive learning curve, definitely. And that's when I started, yes, going on the journey and going into hospital. Whenever I came out of the hospital, that was really when the journey started because there were still the habits, there were still the behaviors, and even the walking up and down that I would have done before I went into hospital, I still needed to do that to get through whatever I was going through. And plus, there was other there was others there was other things I needed to do to keep myself well. It was like taking medication, it was getting sleep and rest, it was eating food, it was doing the behaviors I needed to do to get me through certain parts of the day. It was like if I was getting overwhelmed or anxious, it was like maybe doing the walking up and down. I couldn't drive. I would drive, but I couldn't drive because of the medication I was on. I think I was on 3 or 4 different types of medication. And I don't really want to go into that area of medication because again, medication is a big thing and everybody's medication is different. So I had to take that, but it was only for then. Now if I had took the medication, if I hadn't, I've got the rest, if I hadn't done all those things, I wouldn't be well. I wouldn't be sitting here chatting to you. And some people, you say postpartum psychosis and postnatal depression is a taboo subject. It very is much so a taboo subject. Sometimes these illnesses can take people's lives, can take somebody's mother away, can take somebody's daughter away, somebody's wife away. Uh, and it's so sad when that happens and that person could have been saved, and you hear about it so many times, not a lot, but you hear of it now and again. And it is reality, it is life. So if we're not aware of these symptoms, if we're not aware of our mind, and if we're not aware of, there's a very fine line between dying by suicide due to mental illness and being well, because it can happen so much so quickly, and sometimes it can happen over time and not recognizing it is happening over time.
Yeah, it's the slow dying inside, right?
Yeah,
As you say,
that's what
you
it
feel
is.
numb, you feel like a robot.
Yeah, it is. And I remember going back because there was like the behaviors that I would have, and I had explained to Ryan, I'm only doing this because I need to do this now. It's not I'm getting sick again. It's I need to do this. And there was also a big fear, what happens if this comes back again? What am I going to do? That was at the start. But now I'm more like, right, okay, if it does come back again, we're both educated and Ryan knows about it. I know about it. We're able to act more quicker. We're aware of the signs and the symptoms. So if it does come back again, I can't say if it will or not. It might and it might not, because I do hear some people, it's probably another story, menopause, sometimes you can get psychosis with menopause, but that's way down the line yet. But at least I'm aware of it and Ryan's aware of it. And I remember feeling ill again, mentally unwell. There was a couple of times I had to go back into the GP, the doctor, and we had to go on call in the middle of the night one night because I was really not well. And we went into the doctor, and I think he was of a different nationality from what I was myself and spoke a different language. And I was like, oh my God, he's not going to understand a word I say, or he's not going to understand me, and it's going to be terrible. But that was my thought. But whenever I went in to speak to him, he turned around and he said to me, I know what that's like. I've lived with that. And see, as soon as he said that to me as a professional GP doctor sitting at that, I was able to go, oh my God, that was such a relief that he understood what I was going through. And I'll never forget him. I will, because he said to me, go you home and I will get you sorted out tonight. And he did get me sorted. But I never got readmitted again, but there was a couple of times I had to keep going back. And then because on the journey of recovery, different habits would have slept in, like eating food, like I would have my eating habits would have got really out of control, eating sweet stuff. Like I was eating one time, I was eating 4 Mars bars a day just because I could do it and nobody was watching me. But I didn't realize I was harming my body as another form of self-harming. And then when somebody told me there's like 16 teaspoons of sugar, if I'm right, in a Mars bar, like I was eating 4 of those a day. And then me and Ryan went to counselling and he noticed the eating, but he didn't have the words to say to me, I know you're eating 4 Mars bars a day because I can see the papers in the car. I can see the paper. I would have ate them if I was in the car going to pick the children up from something, or if I had to go and do shopping. It was a habit. I was picking them up, and then I didn't realize I was sitting in the car eating them. But we went to counsel with that, and he was able to. We were able to work through that, and he would say, right, I know that you're eating. I've noticed that you're eating sweets, or I've noticed you're eating bars of chocolate. What's going on? So, that's been a big, yes, it was hard at the start because when men ask you, your husband, what's wrong with you? You're like, nothing, I'm fine. There's nothing wrong with me. Now it's more open, and the menstrual cycle has been a big part of me recovering as well. So it definitely has. Now, knowing what day I'm on, I think today I am on I think I'm day 15, which is kind of good time for me because I feel like energetic. I do feel a bit anxious, nervous, speaking to yourself about this. And but I feel good today. I really do. And a bit sparkly.
Yeah, you do sparkle.
Thank you. Thank you. No, but
yeah, I'm really glad that you do sparkle and that you allow yourself to sparkle, and as you say, bring a little bit of sparkle into every day.
Yes.
And one thing I also wanted to point out, or to go back to, that in that moment when you experience that postnatal depression and psychosis, and I believe when others experience it, even when you are aware that it exists and you might know what it looks like, especially women and people socialized as women will go, yeah, but my symptoms aren't as bad, I can still cope. So we even have this mechanism, we've learned this mechanism to minimize our suffering, and similar to what nothing is wrong, no, I can cope.
That's so true.
And it's good to have a supportive husband like you have, and have this open relationship with him where you can talk about it.
And it took time to get there. But also, like, as women, like especially over here in Northern Ireland, and you're probably the same, just get on with it. You're okay, just get on with it. And because I felt it was my choice to have my children, it was my responsibility to bring them up, and I didn't need to ask for help. And I felt so alone. I felt I couldn't ask for help because I felt I'd just be told no, so I felt like it was my responsibility. But sometimes I've got better at asking for help, because sometimes we do need to ask for help. We're not meant to do this all alone. Like when you look probably years and years ago in different cultures, the women all help each other. And it's kind of getting a bit lost now, because I think women are expected to do so much, like have a job, raise a family, keep a house. Years and years ago, it was like, you either kept the house and looked after your children. And yes, it's good for having independence, women to have that independence of having a job as well. But there needs to be a bit more relaxed. So even on ourselves as women, we need to be more relaxed with ourselves and say, right, what can I do today? Do I need to do this today, or can I let that go? And another good thing I use for myself is the word pause. I love that word pause, because sometimes like, well, I get a bit stressed out about doing the housework, whatever. And somebody said to me, the housework will always be loyal to you no matter what. It'll always still be there every single day. So sometimes I'll pause that, I'll pause the dishes and do them later. Or if I'm doing a course, there was a course I did there last year, the year before. I took part of the year of COVID. It was mental health wellbeing coaching. And I really did feel it was like too much for me because I had the boys at home. It was 2 days, once a month, and I was getting childcare sorted out, and it was, you know, yourself, when you're doing courses, you need time to be able to read books, to get the resources. And I thought to myself, you know what, I need to put a pause in this. And then I spoke to the lady, and she says, yes, that's okay. So I was able to reconnect in with that course last year and actually finished it this year. So, you know, things can be paused. I think when we use the word stop, it's very like, right, that's it. You know, whatever you
Yeah, yeah.
use the word pause. And even
So
with the
much
menstrual,
softer, right? So much more
it is very,
feminine.
yes, it is. And even with the menstrual cycle, I'm sure you're probably the same. There's days that we're like, yes, let's do this, let's get this done today. And there's other days, no, I can't do that. And I would sometimes, I talk to my boys about the menstrual cycle as well, because whenever I was going through my journey of postnatal depression and postpartum psychosis, nobody came to me, none of the professionals came to me and said to me, right, what's your menstrual cycle like? And that's such a big part of our lives. And I remember from when I was very young, I would have been very emotionally challenged. And I think, would you use the word, or just didn't understand. You know, I was a bit naive. I didn't understand my menstrual cycle. I didn't understand what it was. I just thought it was this horrible
You
thing that
know, I don't believe it's naive.
yeah,
We are simply not taught, and even the medical
yeah,
system doesn't know everything about the
yeah.
wonder our cycle is, right?
Yes, that's so true. And now I know like where I'm at within my cycle and where I'm at with my emotions, because it's a big thing as well. So there's some days I need to, right, okay, I'll go slow today. Maybe the next day I'll be on fire. I'll be able to make bread, clean the house, um, do some voluntary work. I do some voluntary work with the charity, support together. I also do a bit of voluntary work with this other charity called APP. They're based in the UK. They're called Action on Postpartum Psychosis. They're actually, you can actually, anybody in anywhere can sign up to them. They're great online support. So you can get online support if you need extra support as like peer support worker, people who have experienced postpartum psychosis. It's just like peer support, and peer support's amazing as well, because when you get even with support together, the charity I got involved with in Northern Ireland, they were amazing support to me. Definitely, I wouldn't be here without them. I don't think I wouldn't be here.
Wow.
I wouldn't without them. And I know you spoke there earlier about people saying about having these symptoms and saying that they'll cope with them and they'll get better. I can, this is my experience, and I'm only saying, I say, please, if you are experiencing any of those symptoms, just talk to anybody. Just talk to someone that you trust. And if you need to go and get help, get it, because they can only get worse. Like I thought I could cure myself, and only for the intervention of support together, the mental health team, you could be sitting here writing another story. I could be sitting here writing another story. My boys could be, you know, it's for your children, for yourself. You deserve it. You deserve to have a life with lots of light, love, sparkle. So you do. Everybody does. So yeah, I would really, yeah, that's my, because I did think, you know, because again, medication, everybody sees, again, that's another taboo subject with medication, is like, oh, you're going to get addicted to it. It's going to be tough. And I heard somebody saying, one of my friends saying, oh, that's her for life. She's going to be addicted to it. But it's not that. If you have a heart problem, if you're a diabetic, if you're,
Yeah.
you need to take medication to keep yourself well. You know, if you don't take that medication, if you have a heart problem, you're not going to get, you're not going to be well. So it's like our mind, sometimes we need to take medication. I'm still on one of my medication now, to keep
And you
myself.
know, that's the thing. You are on one. So yes, for a time you might need to take all of that medication. And
Yeah,
also at the same time, you were looking to to find ways that support your whole body and system, so that
Yes.
at one point you wouldn't have to take all of them anymore.
Yeah. And you know, the one is fine. Yes, I used to have those disagreements with myself and all, but if it keeps me well, if it keeps myself as part of my self-care
Yeah.
and as part of my healing, then why not? You know what I mean? I'm doing it
Yes,
for my
yes.
boys, I'm doing it for myself, I'm doing it for my husband, because there's this time I feel like everything is kind of turned around now, that I'm actually well, I'm able to do things. I'm looking forward. I'm taking this time out now. Yes, doing a bit of voluntary work, but next year, you know, I'm going to explore different things, be able to do different things, hopefully, go back out into the world again and shine.
Mm-hmm.
So it
Sparkle.
is sparkle, yes,
Spread
sparkle.
some of your sparkles. I would love to see that. Yes.
Yes, yes, definitely.
Thank you for sharing all your stories so openly, and it's yeah, I think it's a big support to anybody watching who experiences similar things, or suspects that a friend might go through that.
Yeah.
Maybe as a form of like summary, what are the main symptoms you think, in your perspective? Of course it's shaped through your personal experience, and it doesn't
Yeah.
it doesn't hold true for everybody,
Yeah.
but what are the main symptoms people need to look out for in themselves, or in their friends, in their spouse, and where would you direct them to? Where can they get help if they want to?
Yeah. Well, I suppose the main symptoms are, it's very hard to say, because sometimes it can be very, like mine was very, suppose it was ongoing from I had my first boy. There was the symptoms of the fear of the birth, you know, going to get help, and then was made felt like I couldn't contact anybody. But if you do feel like that, and if you just don't feel 100%, or there's something that you used to love that you don't love anymore, or you're just feeling like there's no life in me, or just seek out help. Go speak to somebody you trust. Um, Speak to the doctor, speak to somebody you know, and even with your husband, even for husbands, like sometimes you might think she's just being a woman, but it's more than that. Sometimes if you know your partner's changing, it's not because of you, it's because of them. It's because they feel it inside themselves and they want to feel something. So sometimes what we do is we take it out on other people to get to feel even worse about ourselves, and they don't mean it. Like I said horrible things to my husband and I didn't mean it, but looking back now, I just wanted somebody to hate me so much that I could justify hating myself. So I could. So yeah, it's a very difficult one. But if you just notice that there's even a change in personality, so as one of my covers up would have been if me and my husband went out, I would have, you wouldn't think there was nothing wrong. I would have smiled and laughed and chatted. But as soon as we got back into the house, the mask came off. The language, the words, you know, berating him, not in a bad way, but just trying to get, yeah, because you were putting on a show and that takes so much energy to let people feel or think that you're great, that not great, but you're good. And it's okay not to be okay. It's okay. It takes a strong person to say, look, I need a little bit of help here. I need to speak to somebody. Um, you do have the app Action on Postpartum Psychosis, and that does men can reach into that as well, spouses can reach into that, friends can reach into that as well. And then in Northern Ireland, you have Support Together. Um, and just, you know, if you look up numbers, I'm sure there's a wealth of knowledge out there for people to look into it and all. But, you know, when there's life, there's hope. And that's a lot. Like if there's a little bit of hope, you know, for me at the start of my journey, it was taking each minute, but each minute to go by, and that minute might have been just right. Okay, I need to rest, because when we go through that journey of that darkness and keeping up appearances for other people and doing what we need to do as a mum, you know, when you look at the list of things that we have to do as a mum for a baby, never mind for other children, and our first is always the hardest. The first is like that's when you start to really learn. Um, it's so difficult to do all that and try to keep up appearances, and it takes a lot of work in our minds to do that. It's like going to the gym. If you go to the gym to do an hour's workout, running the treadmill, lifting weights, um, whatever else you need to do in that gym to keep your body physically fit. Well, for your mind, we're going through that journey of darkness. It takes a lot of work, and it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of effort to put on that appearance when you go outside your front door to say, "Oh, everything's great, everything's good." We need to rest. We need to rejuvenate our minds. We need to just be still, and that's the hardest thing in life to do sometimes. I hope that helps.
Just be okay with not being okay.
Yeah,
because it is okay to not be okay.
Yeah, and it's only for now. It's not for, sometimes we go through these stages. And, like whenever I was going through that, I was worried about my children are going to turn out like me. I'm not going to be able to drive for but that was only for then. It's changed now. I'm able to drive. I'm able to have a conversation with yourself. I'm able to go and pick my boys up. I'm able to have fun. I'm able to laugh, and I would be open to them about life as well, about, we do sometimes once a week where we do a family gathering where we gather in the sitting room and we do like 30 seconds of breathing. I have to keep it very short for them. And I would say what day I'm on my cycle, and they're like, "Oh my, not again, not about the menstrual cycle again." Well, it's to let them know that if I'm sad or cross, it's not to do with them, it's me. Because sometimes they do, yes, children do things. At the end of the day, we all do things when we're younger, but sometimes we do things for fun, and your parents might be like, really cross. Like maybe I'm trying to think, like the boys sometimes would go and get sweets and stuff and all, but I'm not cross. I'm just, because they hadn't asked or that they're allowed sweets and stuff, but it's not because I'm just cross for the sake of it or annoyed. And sometimes we are, but it's not to do with them, it's ourselves. And I think that's so important for them to know that it's not to do with them. It's just what's going on inside here.
Wow. Boy, I don't know. You dropped so many nuggets in this whole conversation. It's unbelievable the growth that you've gone through, the shining and sparkling that you already do, the Christmassy feeling that you bring to our conversation. It's thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here today.
You're welcome, Lisa. Thank you for
this beacon of light.
Yeah, because I want to empower women, but then whenever I was sitting in the hospital, one of my thoughts was, I have 4 boys. I want to empower them as well. Yes, it's good to empower women, but it's also very important to empower men, because if men understand life and understand, mental health and the menstrual cycle, different things about life, then they're more compassionate towards, they'll be more compassionate, understanding of women. And if they don't know how they supposed to know how to treat women, or some statements could be like, "Oh, she's on her thing, don't bother her," but that shouldn't be the way it should be said. It should be said, "Oh, you're on your cycle today. Are you bleeding today? Can I make you a cup of tea?" Or that I want to bring my boys up, that if they have a daughter or a wife, that they're not going to be embarrassed to sit down and talk about their menstrual cycle or birth or mental health, that they can have an open conversation and not get embarrassed and ask them what they need. And that's, even if you don't have your menstrual cycle, we need to do that for ourselves every day. What do we need today? Do we need a hug from somebody? Do we need to cocoon ourselves? Do we need to hibernate? Do we need to, is this phone call really important to make? Can it wait till tomorrow? Because life's life at the end of the day.
And this is like the core wound that many of us have, this I have needs, but I don't feel worthy of having them met. And so many of us don't even understand our own needs anymore. And that's why I love that you show this practice of asking the other for what they need and helping them understand what they need. It's awesome. And for yourself, obviously, you go inwards and ask, what do I need?
Yes.
What would feel supportive and nourishing today?
Yeah, because sometimes we reach out for other things like drink, unhealthy food, TV, and sometimes we just need to go for a walk. or sometimes you just need to sit with ourselves. So we do.
Thank you, Teresa. Do you have some closing words or something that you feel needs to be shared right now? Your message to the women and men and non-binary people watching right now?
Yeah. Just there's always light at the end of the tunnel, no matter what you're going through. I know sometimes it seems like there is no, but there is. And I always go back to that quote I also love too, is when there's hope, there's life. And that I just feel that's so powerful as well. So do definitely. Because I never would have took the effort of making one of these earrings on. So now that I it's not as selfish, it's just sometimes I like to bring a bit of color to people's lives, and I hope I brought some color to this conversation as well, because it is a taboo subject, and it's nice to have a bit of lightness and a bit of laughter too. Yeah. So yeah, and I wish you all.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for going through that dark night of the soul and coming out the other way to support people.
Yeah. Yes. And thank you for having me, Lisa. I really enjoyed speaking to you today.
You're welcome. I wish you a beautiful day and
Yes, me
speak to you
too.
next time.
Yes, speak to you soon. Bye-bye.